Man, this is so good. Over a year after its original release, Stellar Blade drops onto PC and within a matter of days sells over 1 million units, still selling right now. And media outlets aren't really too sure what to think about it. You got a few of them that are fumbling around trying to pretend like they've liked it all along, a couple other ones that are trying to shame you for enjoying it, and then of course you got a couple of others that are saying that the game is only popular because of Asians, because they don't count or something. Why are you guys like this? The truth is, Stellar Blade was never the right kind of game in their eyes. It wasn't made for the right reasons or how they want games to be made or what they want games to do. And that's a problem because when the media doesn't like who the game is made for, well, then they got to find any way to be able to diminish its success through subtext or whatever means that they can use. But this game is much more important than a lot of people give it credit for because it's exposed a double standard. It pushed Sony to get rid of region locking, delivered one of the cleanest PC ports that we have seen in years, and it sparks a discussion that goes far beyond thick thighs and camera angles. I've played Stellar Blade. I really enjoy it. And while I've been playing it, it's not perfect. It really shows just how hard people have tried to misrepresent it. And that's incredibly frustrating. So today what I want to do is I want to break down the game itself. I want to talk about the backlash that it faced and what this really says about the industry. Because it's not that Stellar Blade did anything wrong. It didn't break any rules. It just exposed the truth. Stellar Blade was always a bit of a curiosity. Even before its launch, it had this slick-looking, high-end visuals, stylish combat, and eye-catching protagonist, and it stood out as a rare console release, AAA console release from Shift Up, the Korean studio behind Goddess of Victory Nikke, a wildly successful gacha game. And this is something that we've been seeing more of lately, more studios that are making a fortune off of mobile or gacha games that are using that money to fund real full-scale releases, not another monetization funnel, actual games. Cygames did it recently with Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which then sold over 1 million copies in under 2 weeks. Stellar Blade then followed, hitting 1 million units that were sold in just a month after the game's launch, while it was still exclusive to PlayStation 5. But then came the PC version. A year after the release, Stellar Blade dropped on Steam and it immediately became one of the top sellers. It broke over 90,000 concurrent players in a matter of hours and then passed 180,000 players at peak hours, then climbing up towards 200,000 by the end of the week. Sony later confirmed that it was the fastest-selling PlayStation title in Steam history, moving 19 times faster than any of their other ports. That one release more than tripled its lifetime sales, pushing it towards 3 million copies sold, and it's still rising. Now, I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. I did not see that coming, and that is partly on me because I read a lot of reviews, not because I necessarily trust all of them, but because I just want to get a temperature check. Is the game fun? Does it run well? What's the combat like? But with Stellar Blade, even though most outlets gave it a solid review score, it was an 80 on OpenCritic at the time, I didn't realize just how much of that coverage was drenched in subtext. The reviews weren't about how the game played, they framed it as a knockoff, a diet Nier Automata, a game that you should feel embarrassed to enjoy. Not because it actually deserved that, but because that's how they wanted it to be seen. I'd only realized what was happening after two things. One, I actually played the game, which we'll go into later, and two, Shift Up quietly did something incredible and nobody gave them credit for it. Now, you guys might have missed this because a lot of people did, but Shift Up actually approached Sony to lift the region locks that had blocked Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, and a bunch of other games from being sold in over 180 countries. Now, this was not a soft ask. It ended up leading to a full policy reversal, one of the biggest moves that Sony has made in years, and what happened? Silence. IGN covered the ongoing discussions that they had originally had, but once it actually went through, no follow-up, no articles, no credit, not to Stellar Blade, not to Shift Up, and this is one game. This one game helped make PlayStation games globally available again. Apparently, that wasn't worth reporting on. And the minute that happened, it brought everything back into focus, how targeted this game has been since the very beginning. I mean, before its launch, IGN France had published an article, a hit piece more than anything else, calling Eve a doll that was made by somebody that's never seen a woman. Later, they would end up having to walk that back because turns out the director of the game is married, his wife is an artist that works at Shift Up, and Eve was modeled after a real Korean actress. Then after that came articles like how Stellar Blade became 2024's most controversial game. I thought that was Black Myth Wukong or a couple of other games now that I think about it. Stellar Blade's design isn't the problem, it's how creepy men are being about it. Stellar Blade reignites Gamergate discourse, and of course, the reviews, oh my lord, some of them knocking 30 to 40 points off of the score, not for bugs or broken mechanics, but because Eve was too hot. And now here we are again, same game, same outrage. Vice drops an article, Stellar Blade breaks Steam sales thanks to its thirsty fan base. PC Gamer throws out Gooner Game of the Year, pointing out 41% of the mods are smut. This message is not subtle. If you like this game, you're a creep. That's what they're trying to tell you. I mean, even Paul Tossi of Forbes chimed in, tweeting out that the game's success was mostly because of Asians. Like, that somehow makes it less legitimate, as if Korea, Japan, and China don't count. They said the exact same thing about Black Myth Wukong. It's not really popular, it's just big in China. Oh, okay, Chinese players aren't real. Is that the argument now? Now, I think this is really important to point out because of how insidious all of this is, but what this framing really does, subtly but intentionally, is tell you, the Western reader, that you don't have to care, that this game's success is distant, foreign, and not your win. That's the most important part, that it's really not that popular because it's not popular here. All it is culture war nonsense that is dressed up as consumer analysis. And that's when it hit me. This is the exact same thing that happened to Wukong. I was reading PC Gamer's Stellar Blade review, and two things jumped out at me immediately. Two red flags that made it very clear that this game wasn't being judged on what it was being judged for who it was made for. In Molly Taylor's review, she wrote, Stellar Blade's opening hours are so mired by atrocious level design that I can only assume that players are willing to plow through for the sake of seeing the protagonist Eve's bum jiggle around in a skin-tight suit for just a bit longer. Do I blame them? Not necessarily, but it's a mighty tough beginning to get through before things start getting good. And they do, eventually. Though even after 30 hours, I still couldn't shake the feeling that it was trying a little too hard to be Nier Automata on horny steroids. Isn't that essentially just Viagra? After all, its running plot is almost identical. The end of the Earth as we know it, now populated by monstrous alien life forms, a scantily clad woman fighting to reclaim the planet and save humanity alongside a drone companion, soundtracked by eerie female vocals that almost stand parallel to the horrors of the world. Now listen, I've been in these trenches before. I've been playing Shift Up's other title, Nikke, Goddess of Victory, since 2023. I am not new to this developer's particular brand of goonery. If you are new to it, however, Stellar Blade's ass shots, jiggle physics, and barely there outfits are out the wazoo. Does the world or its characters ever acknowledge that fact? Bar one backstreet merchant, no, it's a bizarre juxtaposition in a game that so heavily sexualizes the undeniably glamorous Eve despite being a wholly sexless personality existing in a sexless universe. In fact, Eve has very little personality at all. The same can be said for the supporting cast, Adam and Lily, who, despite me wanting to know more about them, never really offer up much information. This is the exact same thing that happened to Black Myth Wukong. Reviewers were calling it sexist because there weren't any women in the game, only for the second half of the game to introduce several major female characters, including bosses, goddesses, and other key story figures, but that never made it into the conversation because most critics had already decided what the game was and had probably stopped playing it before it could ever prove them wrong. And now it's happening again with Stellar Blade. It's the same sleight of hand. These guys do not want subtlety in games. They need everything spelled out loud. Molly Tyler writes, does the world or its characters acknowledge Eve's sexualization or her lack in personality? No, except yes. Yes, it does. Eve isn't human. She's an android engineered by an AI to be the perfect being, an artificial answer to flawed humanity. The characters are named Adam and fucking Eve. This isn't even subtle, it's biblical. They are not meant to look normal because they are idealized by design. This only goes over your head when you are actively looking for something to hate. And that's the trick, and I want people to understand this. This kind of negative framing is not accidental. It is a tool. Outlets will praise the visuals or mechanics, but the start of the review is criticizing Eve's design, priming the readers to see the game as juvenile or shallow. Once that lens is set, everything else, combat, writing, even level design, gets dragged down with it. I have seen plenty of reviews calling out the level design for being atrocious, but after playing the game myself, no, it's not Dark Souls, but it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly serviceable. The real weak points are the uneven voice acting and the clunky writing, but that's honestly about it. Now, this is something that I didn't notice until much later, but both Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong are such strong enough games with clear enough appeal that the critics could not outright pan them. They could not just score them terribly. So instead, what they did was they attacked around the edges. All the review scores landed around 80 on Metacritic, but the tone never matched the score. Instead, you got condescension, moral posturing, and when challenged, we would get the exact same excuse. What are you talking about? We reviewed it positively. I have read that so many times in so many articles on these games. They use that number as a shield while the text quietly tells you that this game is something to be ashamed of or something that you shouldn't play. Now, some of this is conscious, some of it isn't, but either way, the pattern is the exact same. We're in a global culture war right now, and games like Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong have become symbols of everything that games journalists do not want to win. These titles are proudly made for a male demographic, and that alone invites ridicule, because the idea that men might enjoy something and that it might succeed without appealing to everyone, that is seen as a threat. And the hypocrisy here is so obvious. These critics will gush over a dating sim where you can romance inanimate objects. They'll celebrate progressive themes. They'll cheer on Baldur's Gate 3's bear scene, but a slick action game with a hot lead, that's the line that you're going to draw? The truth is, I don't think that these guys realize how much worse they are making things for themselves. Gamers have always pushed back against this kind of pearl clutching. This has always been a counterculture space, messy, rebellious, unfiltered, and over time, they have watched it get sanitized in the name of inclusivity or in safety, not real safety or inclusivity, just the kind that looks good on a press release. Now, the irony is the people that these folks probably think that they're protecting don't even need it. They've always had games that were made for them. The issue is when every single game needs to be reshaped to fit one narrow ideological mold. When anything doesn't fit, it's just going to get quietly shamed out of existence. I mean, Stellar Blade is a mature rated game, obviously designed for men. That is okay, though, to be honest with you guys, I've seen way more women adding me on Twitter ever since I started talking about the game on there. Most of its community is ran by women. But not every franchise needs to be for everyone. Not every game needs to be focus tested into slop. Some games need to be specific. Some things are allowed to be made for somebody else. Now, sure, part of this is about money, at least on the developer side. Broader appeal does mean bigger numbers, but for the media, most of these critics and the people on the sidelines, it's not about sales, it's about control. It's about reshaping the medium to match how they think and what they think other people should value, how they think that other people should behave. It's less about what the game does and more about who it does it for. Because at the end of the day, Stellar Blade didn't really commit any sort of moral offense. It just refused to apologize who it was made for. Now, instead of live and let live, what ends up happening is they want to force their way through every single franchise and every single game that's out there. And I've said this a million times. My haters will completely disagree. They'll likely make a video saying that I'm a liar about it. But much of this comes down to target audiences. It's not like inclusive themes or diverse themes can't exist in games. It's just they can't exist in every single game because not every single game is made for everyone. A lot of this just comes down to target audiences. But that's not enough for them. So what ends up happening is that they see something that conflicts with their worldview, and while they can't outright condemn it because it's too good to condemn, they use subtlety. They use subtext to be able to do so. So they gently nudge you in the direction of not wanting to play the game, and they gently nudge the developer in the direction of not making games like that. I had a girlfriend once. Crazy. I know, but she had a guy friend. Completely platonic. Believe me, this dude didn't have a shot. But after they would hang out, every time I would see her, she would be on me about something. Always. And one time, she came by and she had said something like, "You never let me do what I want to do." Scouts on her, I'd never stopped this girl from doing a single thing because her doing something else meant that I was playing video games. And that was definitely not something I was going to be trying to stop. But when that happened, it clicked. And I realized it was him. She was gossiping, she was friend zoning, and he was very subtly nudging her in the direction of being more angry, about thinking that there's other things that are going on, making her believe that there's something else that was going on. And I brought it up. I said, this isn't real. This is what's happening. And she was pissed at me for saying that. And I told her that if we broke up, he would confess to her. She got even more angry. She broke up with me. 2 days later, he shows up at her door with flowers and a confession. I got an apology. The same thing is happening with these reviews because it's the negative framing And it's also the conscious and subconscious part that's happening. The conscious part is, I don't like the guy because she's with that guy, right? So like, I don't like this game because these players like this game. And the other part of it is that they don't really know anything about them or the relationship. So that's more of the subconscious part of it. And I guarantee that some of these writers do truly believe, well, I reviewed the game positively. No, you didn't. You saw that Asmongold liked the game. You saw that some anti-woke folks over on Twitter were raving about it. And subconsciously, you did not want that game to be good. You did not want them to get a win. You wanted it to be bad or mediocre. And because of that, you were predisposed to not like that game. And that came through in your reviews. That happens. And we've seen that happen quite a lot. Now, one thing that I will say, and this is something that I think we all can agree on, is that Eve is hot as hell, like distractingly so, to the point where I don't even really know what I'm supposed to be focused on. But that pivots to a touchy topic, which is what this game's success proves. And that's that really attractive characters and solid game design make one hell of a combination. I went into Stellar Blade with incredibly low expectations, not just because of what I read, but also because I had already been burned. Because right before playing it, I tried the first Ascendant, a painfully shallow experience that left me convinced that these stylized, hyper-attractive female character designs were just a cheap marketing trick. It felt like the developers thought that all they needed was hot girls on the screen and the rest would be taken care of by itself. No soul, no design vision, just pretty faces wrapped up in a lifeless game. So I assumed that Stellar Blade would be the exact same thing, and I was wrong, completely wrong, because I've played Stellar Blade for quite a while now, and part of the reason why I'm making this video right now is because I think this game was radically mischaracterized. Critics tried to paint it as a budget Nier Automata, a Temu clone with jiggle physics, but what I actually saw was something completely different, a sincere, imperfect love letter to Yoko Taro's masterpiece. And I do not invoke the name of that game lightly. Nier Automata is one of the most emotionally and structurally complete games that I have ever played. Its storytelling, its music, its pacing, the way that everything ties together. Very few games even come close to what Nier has accomplished. And to be clear, Stellar Blade does not reach those heights, but it tries. And that's what I find so fascinating. Most games would never even attempt that kind of ambition, but Shift Up somehow did on their very first AAA game. And honestly, a lot of what's going on here actually works. The world design is gorgeous. It's drenched in this quiet sense of despair. You explore cities that are slowly being reclaimed by nature, walking past towers and scattered remnants of what clearly used to be a thriving civilization. The notes you find, the little scraps of history, the fragments of loss, it all builds to something eerily beautiful. The traversal can be a little bit janky at times, but the environments feel distinct and fully realized. It's all rendered with a level of visual polish that most veteran studios cannot achieve. Some of the reviewers were trying to criticize the game's soundtrack for trying to copy off of Nier, but this soundtrack goes hard and it is all on its own. One minute you have these dreamy ambient tracks, the next it's this melodic K-pop, and then suddenly you're in a boss fight with metalcore blast beats that are pushing you into hyper-focused mode where you're just going off on a boss. And then there's the combat. My God, the combat. One-on-one, it's some of the most satisfying gameplay that I've had all year. It can be a little bit awkward in group fights since there's not really a lot of like enemy clustering mechanics. I wish that when you would swing or do AoEs, it would group enemies and then you'd be able to use your AoE attacks the way that you would actually want to. But in single target encounters, it just all clicks together. The moveset just keeps expanding as you continue to play. You start with basic attacks, then you get dash counters, parry chains, repulsion dodges, and all kinds of these different skill-specific combo finishers. You've got beta attacks for breaking shields, launching enemies, or dishing out AoE damage. You can weave between these heavy and light string attacks to create all these different combos depending on your timing. And yeah, it even has its own full-blown devil trigger mode where Eve basically goes God mode for a few seconds and just shreds everything on the screen. From where I'm standing, Stellar Blade isn't just one thing. It just feels like somebody that really liked video games blending all of their favorite games together. It pulls in the challenge and structure from Dark Souls and Elden Ring, the fast-paced combat and style of Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, and the atmosphere, the music, and emotional core of a game that he clearly worshipped, which was Nier Automata. Shift Up doesn't nail everything, well, except for Eve's curves. They definitely got that part right. But what they do land is ambition. It actually reminds me of the time where I used to play in a metalcore band, and we opened once for this regional act that was called Ice 9 Kills. And I remember thinking to myself, damn, these guys are legit. I can't wait to see what they do next. And then a few years later, they ended up breaking the Billboard Top 200. And that's what this feels like to me, because the fact that this is Shift Up's first AAA game is just wild to me. It runs beautifully on PC, it looks incredible, plays smooth, and it isn't filled with microtransactions or recycled mechanics. And it's not just technically solid, this game has identity. They made the game that they wanted to make for the audience that they wanted to reach. No compromise, no diluted vision, just style, skill, and a clarity of purpose. That's why it all worked. That's why this game has been so successful, and that's why they deserve every bit of their success. But that success is also why backlash exists, because when I look at how Stellar Blade has been received and how often games that target male audiences get framed in negativity, it's not hard to see what's happening. Over the years, games have been quietly sorted into categories. You've got male games, which are shooters, military sims, and sports titles, and then everything else is supposed to be made for everyone. And the kind of stuff that sits in the middle, the kind of stuff that used to sit in the middle, the action games with the striking stylized characters and unapologetically masculine energy, most of that stuff has either been toned down or phased out entirely. We've seen this slow erosion of attractive characters under the guise of modern sensibilities. Even Japanese developers have started to shift their designs to avoid criticism. Remember Palworld CEO saying they added a character creator because Westerners like making ugly characters. That wasn't a joke, it was a business move. These guys have been talking about this. We've seen other studios admit that they have removed or redesigned female characters out of the fear that they're going to be labeled as sexist or exclusionary. And look, I'm not trying to wade into any culture war here. I am not trying to argue about morality or politics, but the simple truth is products succeed when they accurately serve their audience. That's it. You cannot make a gritty sci-fi action game with Souls-like difficulty and Devil May Cry combat for a general audience. You are by definition targeting a niche, and that niche is overwhelmingly male. The only real difference that I'm seeing between Eastern and Western studios right now is that Eastern studios are not afraid to own that. They are not embarrassed to make games for dudes. And when that kind of game has been missing from the market, when their only other options are gacha games or mobile cash grabs, it's no surprise that something like Stellar Blade lands as hard as it does. Of course it found an audience. Of course that audience loves it, because the game knew exactly who it was for and it didn't flinch. The one thing that I think people really need to understand is that all games have a right to exist, but they all don't have a right to success. Games only succeed when they're being made for a real audience, an audience that actually exists, an audience that's actually going to be interested in that game. Take Forspoken as an example. For all of its flaws, it was still a decent action game. It had a cool premise, a gorgeous world, incredible traversal, and fun combat, but the problem was the audience of players of that kind of game is overwhelmingly male, and when you build your story around a lead character who's bitter, cynical, and nearly impossible to root for, when the tone and the writing feels like it's being made for a demographic that barely even plays video games, you're not being bold, you're being delusional. You can make a game like that, but you have to be honest about the scope, the budget, and the actual reach that it can have. And there is nothing, and I mean nothing, wrong with making a game for dudes. I love emotionally complex games, a diverse cast of characters, powerful writing, but deep down, I'm genetically wired, no, compelled to play the game with the hot girl, with the nasty ass monsters, with the big sword and the giant explosions. I like things that look fun and look fun to hit, and so do a lot of people. What we're seeing right now with a lot of these recent Eastern releases is the pendulum swinging back. It's a return to cultural authenticity. When Yoko Taro comes forward and says that he made 2B sexy because I really just like girls, people respect that. When Stellar Blade's director says that I challenge modders to see what they can do, or that adult mods shouldn't be banned for any reason whatsoever, people listen, not because it's provocative, but because it's honest. No deflection, no PR shield, no pearl clutching, just saying what everybody already knows. Guys like hot girls like hot girls. we like things that look good, and there's no shame in that. I think that it's really easy to assume that games like Stellar Blade, Nier, Bayonetta, and more are just tapping into baser instincts. Like that alone is the formula. But what people are actually responding to here is the clarity. It's the creative confidence, the refusal to water things down or pretend like you're aiming for something that you're not. That honesty resonates, not because it's bold, but because it feels rare in a space that has become so obsessed with risk management and mass appeal. But even with that authenticity, intention only gets you so far, because the truth is, it's not enough. And Stellar Blade proves that, and that's what makes this game even more important. Hot characters alone do not make a game work. Just look at The First Descendant, a game that had the looks but none of the substance. It's lost over 98% of its player base because they never prioritized gameplay. The devs thought that they could just coast with surface level appeal, but all they delivered was a shallow, aggressively monetized mess. And their last biggest update that they did, well, they added jiggle physics. And I'm sure the dozen players that are left playing the game appreciated it, but it doesn't fix a hollow game. Gameplay and quality always come first. And that's what I find really frustrating when I see a game like Stellar Blade framed the way that it was. So many outlets and critics, even players that were fixated on how characters were portrayed in the game, suffocating the conversation that we should have had. This was Shift Up's first shot at a AAA title, and they crushed it. No, it's not perfect. No, it wasn't made for everyone, but it was a damn good game. It knew exactly who it was made for, and it delivered. That is worth celebrating. That is worth respecting. And frankly, it's a lesson that a lot of studios could learn from. I think the desire to see games like Stellar Blade fail comes from the fallacy that games are a 50-50 split, regardless of genre, between male and female. And it's really just not the case. And they think that if games like this succeed, well, then these companies are going to be more inclined to make games like those. And then it also goes to prove that the vast majority of things that people say online don't actually even matter. And when they are offline, they're just going to go buy the things that they want regardless. And if there's more money in games like that, well, then there's less money in games like Dragon Age the Veilguard. And that doesn't necessarily sit right with a lot of people's worldview. I can't imagine how hostile of an environment it has to be a game developer that's trying to make a game or trying to make games that are going to please everybody and not offend anybody. Actually, I take that back. I know exactly how that is. I'll be honest. When I first started making YouTube videos a couple years ago now, I guess it's actually 2 years now, I tried to play both sides. If it was a game that I hated, I would try to talk about the good side. If it was a game that I liked, I'd try to talk about the, bad side. If it was a culture issue or something like that, I would try to do my best to just stay between it. But the funny thing is, that never works. And that's just not what people want, because it's not you and it's not real. So eventually I just got to the point where I said, screw it. I'm not taking any sides. I'm just going to say what my opinion is. Take it or leave it. If you don't like it, it is what it is. Come to find out, lo and behold, people like that content a heck of a lot more. Funny enough, all the labels that people used to throw on me when I was making those super nice videos, yeah, they're all still here. They're still the same. Doesn't matter what you do. People are going to do that regardless. It's like I said before, in the eyes of the players, when they see a game like Stellar Blade, it's counterculture. It is so refreshingly blunt. This is an old term, and you don't really hear this very often anymore, but it's a pushback against political correctness. You can't do that. You can't say that. You can't make that. And finally, somebody standing up to say, yeah, but I like it. I don't think that these guys realize that they've essentially just become like politicians are with like GTA, where they just assume that, oh, because they play these games, they're going to commit crimes. Now they're saying, well, if they play games like this, they're going to objectify women. I think it's time to stop assuming people's intentions or actions based off of the media that they consume, regardless of whatever they create, play, or if they're just enjoying a video game. Stop worrying about it. Maybe we just need to flip it back on these guys. Tell them that the game wasn't made for them. Lord knows it was definitely made for me. Anyway, thank you guys for watching today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's video, like the video, share the video, comment down below. Watch it a second time. Watch it a third time. Follow me on Twitch. I'm going to MagicCon this weekend. So if any of you guys are there, come by and say hi. Outside of that, my friends, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Family.
to be playing Death Stranding 2 when it comes out. As I said, I'm not exactly excited for it because the gameplay loop is once again just tediously delivering packages. They've already shown that. I think the gameplay, like the gunplay and all that, looks really fun. But it seems like the core gameplay loop is once again just tripping over yourself, peeing yourself while delivering packages. And I am really not excited for that. I can't wait to play more of the story, more of the world, and it looks like a huge improvement on gunplay. But to make that the core gameplay loop again is diabolical, downright evil. So yeah, I'm a little salty and a little apprehensive about Death Stranding 2 and my enjoyment of it. But, per usual, I'm gonna play it, I'm gonna finish it. I don't know, is that real? Someone just brought up the Kojima interview where he said too many of the testers liked it, so he shitted it up a bit to make it worse. Is that real? Because I read the article and it sounded like it was just like baloney. I'm gonna look it up again. Because it came from IGN. Hideo Kojima made significant changes to Death Stranding 2 because playtesters thought it was too good. He changed the game halfway through because playtesting results were too good and he doesn't want his work to be mainstream. If that's true, that is like the biggest, hipsteriest, douchiest, like most pretentious, fart-smelling nonsense in game developing history. But it's Kojima, so he always gets a pass. Too mainstream, he's the most mainstream dev. That's the crazy thing. He is literally the gaming industry superstar. Jeff Keighley on every award show has a 30-minute Kojima block basically carved out. If there was a Mount Rushmore of game developers, almost everyone would put him on it. He is the mainstream. Revelation comes from Yohan Lamon, who worked closely with Kojima, upcoming game soundtrack. Talked about his process. Interestingly, he reflected on Kojima opening up about the problem of having players like Death Stranding 2 too much. That means something is wrong. We have to change something. There's a key moment where we had a discussion probably halfway through when we were doing the game where he came to me and said, we have a problem. Then he said, I'm going to be very honest, we have been testing the game with players and the results are too good. They like it too much. That means something is wrong, we have to change something. And he changed stuff in the script and the way some crucial stuff happens in the game because he thought his work was not polarizing and not triggering enough emotions. If everyone likes your work, it means it's mainstream. It means it's conventional. It means it's already pre-digested for people to like it. I don't want that. I want people to end up liking things they didn't like when they first encountered it, because that's when you really end up loving something. That's just cringe. It's so cringe. No, this meal is too good. People are liking this meal too much, so I went and I dunked it in the toilet and I brought it back. Now they're gonna have to force themselves to like it. It's gonna trigger far more emotions that way. Sometimes a game can just be good. Literally every game of his except Death Stranding is universally loved. What does he even mean? He means nothing. He means nothing. It's pretentious for the sake of pretentious. Literally his whole work career, his whole resume, I don't think anything, including Death Stranding, even dips below a 90 across the board. So he's just not even, like, sensible with this at all. It just feels like PR bullshit. Like, oh no, this game was actually too extraordinary. I had to fuck it up. And you're still gonna love it. You have to. I'm Kojima, baby. That's why I said I didn't think this was real. Like, it feels fake. If any other developer said anything even close to this, it would be disastrous. If Neil Druckmann said this, he would be shit on and called a cuck. If Neil Druckmann said this, there'd be people storming his office. Yeah. If Randy Pitchford said it. Now you're playing an interesting game. I bet if Kojima came out and said exactly what Randy did, like, Death Stranding 2 is going to be $90 actually, and real fans of my work will find a way to buy it. The chat would be based. Yes, he's right. Yes, thank you, Kojima. He's always 2 steps ahead. It's all part of the Kojimbo plan, baby. We just can't see it yet. We can't handle what is deemed too good. Our bodies aren't meant for it. We're too frail for the genius. It must be shittied. It has to be. It must be sullied. It's like the apple from the Garden of Eden. How does this help the game in any way? I don't know, man. I really don't get this strategy. I like Kojima's work. I've always liked his work. But I have been very vocal about not liking Death Stranding's gameplay at all. And right now we're in a time where everyone is now saying, like, Death Stranding. Everyone loves Death Stranding. This was like the game. This is when gaming was at its absolute peak. With what Kojima did here. Silent Hill F will be the real test to see if Konami can make a new original game. Everything they've shown looks pretty good. I'm not a big Konami enthusiast, but what they've shown for Silent Hill F does look good. The Silent Hill 1 remake in development is hype. Right now, Silent Hill stock's through the roof. They've got a lot of cool stuff cooking for Silent Hill, which is nice because it went through a stage of embarrassment where they had that interactive movie thing that you had to, like, pay to win on or whatever. Now, we had the Silent Hill 2 remake, which turned out to be shockingly good. A Silent Hill 1 remake from the same team. Silent Hill F. And the new Silent Hill movie from Christoph Gans. It's looking up for Silent Hill.
Program that are secret.
Yep.
A nuclear secret in the Middle East. How about it? If the world is interested in a secret nuclear program in the Middle East, there is a country that won't allow any international inspectors.
Guess which one it is?
Israel.
Oh! I thought they were going to say China.
Israel has a nuclear weapon. Did you know that? I do. They allow no inspections. They are fully secretive and clandestine about it, and the Americans are fully aware. You know what? I don't even blame Israel for this. If they want to develop a nuclear weapon, if they had the blessing to do so secretly, I'm not in judgment of that. But to drag the world into a regime change war over secret nuclear weapons, when you have secret nuclear weapons, is a bit hypocritical.
Well, it's self-preservation. It's just that simple. It's just straight up self-preservation. I can understand it. But if they say they don't need us to get rid of all the nuclear facilities, Israel said that, I think it's time to turn those aircraft carriers around. I think it's time to leave. Yeah, I mean, if we're not going to bomb them and Israel says they can take care of it, time to go. Hypocrites live longer? Yeah. Always act in self-interest. Talk about morals and politics? Yeah. It's not a moral argument. It's a survival argument. Invoking fairness, which is irrelevant? Yeah. You never want to have a fair fight. You always want to have an asymmetrical, overwhelming advantage against your opponent.
So here's the deal. How about Iran and Israel both give up their secret nuclear weapon programs?
Done. Perfect. Completely agree.
If Trump got that deal, he wouldn't only get the Nobel Peace Prize, they'd probably name it the Trump Peace Prize forevermore.
Good one.
And it's not that crazy to think about Israel denuclearizing. Look at the model in South Africa. South Africa denuclearized right before they stopped being an apartheid state.
Yep.
Prominent voices in Israel and America have called for Trump to recognize Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, which some people call the West Bank. If that happens, Israel will have to let the 5 to 6 million people who live there vote.
Oh.
And they don't want to do that. I'm not calling Israel an apartheid state. Right now, I don't think they are. But if they are ruling the West Bank, as the neocons would suggest, then the South Africa model for denuclearization is not totally off base. There's a certain bravado at the beginning of a middle.
I don't see how it's even that complicated about like what the country does, bro. Like, it's better if people don't have nukes. Like, it's just that simple. Like, and people, you know, it's like people might get mad, like, oh, you're making a complicated topic simple, because it is. It really is. Like, absolutely. Like, says USA? Exactly. Like, well, of course we're going to add, like, the USA. Like, think about it like this. Is it good for Russia that Ukraine doesn't have nukes? Simple question. Is it good that Ukraine doesn't have nukes from Russia's perspective? It is. Okay. Is it good for China that Taiwan doesn't have nukes? As far as I don't think Taiwan has nukes, right? Is it good for China? Yes, again. It's also good. Is it good for us that Japan didn't have nukes in World War II? I would say that it is. So the fact is that having these weapons give you a distinct and obvious advantage in combat. Of course, they're going to want to make them, but we can't let other people make these weapons because, again, like we don't want to deal with this shit. It's bad. Yeah, it's power leverage, exactly. And you want to keep the leverage on your side of the table. That's survival. So it's good for the aggressor? Well, it's good also for it's good for the country no matter whether they're the aggressor or the defender. Like, nukes are also a deterrent for attacking a country too. They're both.
Middle East regime change war, there's enthusiasm, bold predictions of swift victory, and usually a total misunderstanding of what happens next.
Yeah.
Oh, Iraq wasn't prepared. Daisy cutter? This is how easily the so-called foreign policy experts believed we would carve our way through Iraq. I saw how many of our bravest patriots were pushing up daisies as a consequence of that war.
Yeah.
I went to their funerals. I visited their grave sites. I saw the true cost of a flawed regime change war in the Middle East. The problem is we had no plan to get out. Iraq cost America $3 trillion, and this distraction and disaster aided in both the rise of China and ISIS.
Yep.
Whoever was telling you that we had the ability to topple a regime in Iraq and then come out with something better was either one, lying to you, or two, so wholly ignorant about the country they were invading that their lack of knowledge or curiosity or...
He's wrong. It's neither. The reason why we got involved with that is because the people that wanted us to get involved had a vested financial interest in our involvement. That's the reason. What was Dick Cheney the CEO of?
Understanding led to blood and terrorism and chaos. So as we approach the 2025 vintage of regime change wars in Iran, I wonder if those now cheerleading attacks on Iran know anything about the country they want to topple.
Yeah, exactly, bro. We can't try to change their regime. We can't do that at all. I do think that this is going to damage the reputation, like especially of a lot of the pro-Israel people. A lot of the pro-Israel people will have their reputation damaged, I think, like seriously, by how much they are defending Israel. And I think that the veil has been lifted for like a lot of average Americans, and they've seen that, you know, America is doing a little bit too much to help Israel out. And I think that that's created, honestly, I think it's created anti-Semitism. I think it has. Instagram Reels contributed to about 90% of today's anti-Semitism. I'm like, honestly, as somebody who is like, I love racial jokes. I love racist jokes. I'm sorry. Like, you can't make them in chat. You're against the rules. Don't even think about it. But I do love them. I do. Didn't JD Vance meet the Pat? Yeah, it's pretty bad on Instagram. Well, a lot of people, and I think what's happened is that Israel has completely lost the narrative in terms of them being this like kind of victimized state, because a lot of young people are growing up without the same type of generational guilt of the Holocaust. And so whenever they invoke Hitler or invoke the Holocaust or something like that, I don't think that it hits the same way now, because a lot of, and here's another reason. These kids probably don't even know when World War II happened. They don't even know when that shit happened to begin with, right? They got no idea. And so big surprise. Yeah, they think, same, I think they're funny too. Yeah, exactly, right? How's Vance's Blue Sky going? Not very well. The real difference, Iran has a large educated population that opposes the regime and even had a democracy before 1979. Well, I'm not trying to compare Iraq and Iran. I don't think it's a fair comparison either, personally. But you can't blame people for having trepidation. I think you should expect that, sure. Equivalent to crying slavery in the U.S., yeah. Maybe if you're not Jewish or studied nothing about World War II or Holocaust, you'd think like that. No, it's very simple. These people were not involved with World War II. They didn't do the Holocaust, so they have no guilt for it. So when you invoke this bad thing that happened in the past to somebody as a justification or a moral authority for why it's okay for you to do something in the future or in the present, that doesn't really hit with the younger people as much, right? It doesn't work anymore. Like slavery, yeah. Think about like slavery, and you're seeing younger people also push back against the idea that, you know, slavery is some kind of like original sin that, you know, America needs to constantly be apologizing for. And that's happening in the same way that it's happening with Israel, is that a lot of these, like basically emotional blackmail techniques are, so lack of historical knowledge. No, well, in some cases, yes. So you're right that a lot of them are just, yeah, they don't know what it is because they're dumb. But there's also a huge contingency of them that don't know, that don't care. And that's the big point that I'm making about this. It's that they don't care. It doesn't matter to them whether, oh yeah, the Holocaust happened 100 years ago or slavery happened 150 years ago. This isn't something that they want to live their life according to today. Because effectively what that means to people is that they don't want to live their life in the context of someone else's problems that they didn't even cause. And what I've learned and what I've observed just throughout history is that one way to radicalize a group of people is to hold them generationally accountable for something that they didn't do. And I think that you can look at this with, you know, obviously I think this led to the rise of like Nazis. I think it led after World War I. I think it led to the rise of a lot of anti-Semitism here. I think that it's led to the rise of, let's see, like a lot of, I think that the hatred that people have for Israel. I think Germany, yeah, exactly, right? It's happening now in America, it is. And I don't know a single instance where that's not the case. And so white Americans understand slavery, they just don't want their rights being lowered because they're white? Yeah, no, I think that's true, obviously. But wars when young, naive, are tricked by old and bitter, killing each other? Sure, right? Guilt tripping is so bad it triggers emotion and it blocks logic. Do you think that we'll live to see a nuke dropped? No, I don't think it'll happen. Yeah, you asked me a question, I don't think so. How is the rise of anti-Semitism from World War I? Well, it's what happened after World War I. And even during the World War I, like, Treaty of Versailles, was that it? I forgot. They even said that this was like, you know, a 20-year armistice until World War II. And so, like, I mean, this was predicted even when it was happening. So, yeah, I could be a little bit wrong with some of these, like, data points. I think it was Kaiser Wilhelm that said that. So it was well defined when it happened. And I think that, again, you're seeing this happen with men too nowadays, where like men are being held generationally accountable because there were certain, you know, generational advantages that men had maybe 50 years ago. And in some cases, only 20 years ago or 30 years ago, men had advantages that women didn't have. But when you're a guy who's 20 years old and you grew up without any of those advantages, and then they still want to handicap you because of them, that's going to create a lot of resentment. And I think that's something that's happening, and it's radicalizing more and more people. And that's where I think a lot of the anti-Israel sentiment is coming from. I think anti-Israel sentiment comes out of that. I think anti-woke sentiment comes out of that. I think that like minority sentiment comes out of that. And yeah, I mean, I would say all of these come out of the exact same thing. You're on point 100%. That's where I would say, yeah, speak of truth. I mean, I hope that people can realize that. I'll read a few more of these in your millennial fathers, pussy. Well, I don't know if they have like dads at this point that are millennial, but yeah, if people are still around who had parents in concentration camps, it's still relevant to talk about today though, right? Well, you don't get to decide what's relevant for another person. And also they don't get to decide what's relevant to you. But you can't make a person care about what you care about, and to the extent that you try to emotionally blackmail them into doing so, you're going to alienate them against you. So I think that's what's clearly happened. It was because, like, again, this is what happened a long time ago, and so, like, why would somebody be thinking and making decisions about it now? What's the difference between emotional blackmail and learning from history? The difference is that it's about guilt, and it's about guilt and obligation. And so whenever you look at a historical context of something and you say, because of this historical context, we now need to be treated differently or better because of that, I think that that's whenever you really run into problems. It's assignment of guilt and assignment of blame. That's really it. White Americans fought to free slaves, yet there's guilt. Well, the amount of white Americans that owned slaves in America was like 1% to 3% or something like that. It was a very small minority of Americans that actually even owned slaves to begin with. Slavery was really expensive. What? Well, yeah, I'll pull it up and show you. A lot of people might not know this. What percentage of Americans owned slaves before slavery was abolished. So I think it's 1.68, right? And so yeah. In the South where slavery was more concentrated, the percentage was higher. So on average, it was 1.4%, and even in the South, it was less than 10% at 8%, right? So there you go. And so very, very low amount of people, around 1860, around 1.4% of the U.S. population owned slaves. So the entire concept of this being like a generational thing that white people are responsible for is ridiculous. The first slave owner in America was black. Well, guess who was probably selling the slaves? Right? I mean, like, that's clearly what happened. I mean, people conquering each other and selling each other into slavery, it's a tale as old as time. So, and that's a lot of things like this that people are realizing. It's so important. And like all of these things, keep in mind too, is that none of these things invalidate people's, like, they don't invalidate civil rights. They don't invalidate people's struggles. They don't invalidate people's personal experiences. But I think it's really important for, at the same time, everyone to realize that there is a big difference. And for people, and I think that when people realize these facts, a lot of the seemingly generational guilt kind of disappears. Slavery was cattle to people? Well, yeah, chattel slavery. Yeah, I think everybody knows that. Slavery was very bad. You're being ignorant? Well, let me go back and actually, you know what? That's not even an argument. I'm just going to ban you. I don't want to argue with somebody who's not even verbalizing what they think. So yeah. And my family ancestors were Irish slaves, so we have that too. Yeah, definitely. And you think the biggest reason why people hate Israel is the horrible war crimes they committed are well documented, like March 23rd, where they clearly unloaded ammunition on ambulance workers? No, yeah, I think that's definitely it. But the problem is that I think that the bad actions that Israel has taken, they probably go back for years. But why are people putting more of an emphasis on it now? Well, I think it's because people are growing up in a culture that doesn't view them. And I think also, like, obviously, as the country becomes kind of less religious and or at least like less, traditionally religious, you're seeing a big change with that too. That's what you do, though. You just say things with no proof. Not always, sometimes. Like what? What have I said without proof? Israel's hated because they baby killers in apartheid state? Do you really think... No. I want you to answer the question. Do you really think that the guilt from World War II has nothing to do with people's implicit support for Israel in the West? No. I want you to answer this question. Do you really think that's true? Sure? Okay. So I say things without evidence, yet you agree with me? Of course. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this.
Evidence that our universe might exist inside a black hole? What's up with that? Well, let's back up for a moment, okay? And put some base information on the table. A black hole is a region of space and time where the strength of gravity is so high that light has no path to get out of the object. All paths through space-time curve back in on itself. Normally we think of a hole as a hole in the floor, and you fall through, come out the other side. Except it's a three-dimensional hole. You can fall in any direction. That edge, beyond which there's no return, we call the event horizon. It's a horizon. The universe has a horizon too. It is a distance beyond which no information can reach us because the universe isn't old enough for light from anything beyond that horizon to have gotten here yet. By the way, the more mass is in a black hole, the bigger the black hole becomes. In fact, if you run the math on it, it's linear. So a black hole that's twice as massive as another one will be twice the diameter. 10 times as massive, the event horizon, which is our practical definition of the size of the black hole, will be 10 times as long. There's a cool exercise we do in graduate school. You can say, given the mass of the universe, how big would the black hole be that contained this much mass? It's the size of our universe to our horizon. And it's like, wait a minute, could we be one giant black hole? The average density of matter contained within the size of our cosmic horizon matches right on with what you'd get for a black hole this size. That's intriguing. Maybe it's just a coincidence. What would it mean anyway for us to be inside a black hole? How would that work? Well, it turns out if you run the mathematics of Einstein's general theory of relativity into a black hole, it turns out a whole new space-time opens up on the other side. And you look behind you and the entire future history of the universe unfolds relative to your time frame. And so the universe you came from basically ends and a whole new universe opens up in front of you. Are we that universe that opened up in front of us? Okay, these are mind-bending questions. Well, there's recent research published that suggests that the contents of our universe has sort of a net rotation to it. Well, that'd be kind of weird. So in this study, it observed several hundred galaxies from the best observing directions you can come up with, which is above and below the plane of our Milky Way. And it noticed a net rotation of spiral galaxies in one direction versus the other. So if you look at spiral galaxies, if half of them sort of rotate like that and the other half rotate the opposite way, then they kind of cancel. But if most of them are rotating in the same sense, in the same direction, then that could hint that there's a net angular momentum of the entire universe. So what did they find? That 2/3 of the spiral galaxies measured rotated in the opposite direction as the Milky Way. So 2/3 is not 100%, but it's certainly more than half. We expect this to just be random. Normally in our lives, we think of something that rotates because some other force set it into motion to do so. And we look in the universe and everything is rotating, and then you ask, what force is making that happen? Turns out, all of our evidence suggests that when you make a galaxy or a star system or a star or a planet, there's some gas cloud that started it. If the gas cloud has any motion at all, the tiniest amount, as it collapses, its rotation will speed up. The gas cloud that was large, moving just a little, will move much faster as it gets smaller. And you know this already when you see ice skaters. When an ice skater spins and they want to spin faster, they start with their arms outstretched. And they have a certain rotation speed by virtue of that. As they bring their arms in, this is a phenomenon of physics called the conservation of angular momentum. If you start out large, slowly rotating, and now you're half the size, you're going to be rotating twice as fast. If you want 1/10 the size, you're going to be rotating 10 times as fast. Is that right? mv squared over r, right? This is why everything in the universe has some kind of rotation, because it's essentially impossible for any large gas cloud to not have motions within it to begin with. Often they're thermal motions. There's turbulence within the cloud before it sort of collapses to become something solid. Because of the turbulence within the clouds, there's no reason to think they would align with each other. They're each independent entities, so that when they collapse and the final product is spinning, there's no reason to think that the spin of this object is going to match up with the spin of an object over here. We have every reason to presume that there's no net spin direction of the universe or objects within it. So if we find and confirm that there is, we got to go back and ask, how could you get that, given our expectations of randomness? Well, that was linked to the idea that we might be in a black hole. Here's why. There's only two kinds of information you can obtain that are preserved inside that black hole. The mass, the total mass, and the angular momentum. Because anything falling in, if it falls in with a swirl, toilet bowl style, that angular momentum continues into the black hole itself. If there's a net angular momentum of the universe, where did it come from? It's not obvious that would come from a Big Bang, which is an explosion in all directions statistically evenly. What could it be? Could we be a black hole with a net angular momentum of stuff that spiraled into us? So that's where the black hole connects back to whether the universe is rotating. So I look forward to seeing whether this result is confirmed or falsified. It's an intriguing result, and the number of galaxies was not very large, just a few hundred, and there are billions of galaxies out there. So I'll reserve judgment until I see what others publish on this subject. Anyhow, that was a what's up with that on whether or not we are living in a black hole. And if we were, what difference does it make? But it's fun to talk about. Until next time, keep looking up. I want wormholes everywhere, like in the back of your refrigerator connected to your grocer.
Okay, now you're going Homer Simpson on me.
No! Wouldn't it be fun if we were just the nth intelligent civilization to rise up on planet Earth? I think we would see a record of this
Somewhere.
somewhere in the fossils.
Right.
There'd be a Statue of Liberty sticking out of the ground.
Damn you! Damn you all to hell!
Star Talk, Cosmic Queries. Oh, yeah. Chuck,
Hey.
you going to help me out here?
Of course.
Yeah. You know, I never see these questions in advance.
No, you
They
don't.
come from our Patreon
The
supporters.
people who are
Entry
kind.
level.
Yes, that's all it takes is $5 a month, and we.
You know, it's been $5 a month for years.
And you know why? Because we don't believe in inflation, unlike some other people.
So, is there a theme today?
Nope, this is a grab bag.
Just random.
Whatever they want.
Ask me anything.
Let the people speak and ask.
Okay.
The
Let's get right into it.
Inquiring minds want to know. Here we go.
Let's get right into it.
Okay, Eric44 says, "Hey, legends. Eric here, exercise physiologist and space flight physiology researcher from New York City."
Love it.
Look at that.
Love it.
He says, "My question is, all motion requires time, but does all time include motion?"
I would say the measurement of time requires not only motion, but something that repeats.
Okay,
Think about it.
right.
Have you ever measured time with something that did not repeat periodically? The answer is no.
No, you can't.
A day repeats every
Of
day.
course, right.
Seconds repeat.
Seconds,
Everything
right.
repeats. Months repeat.
Yeah.
Years repeat.
Right.
So where there is no repeated motion, there can be no coherent measure of time. All you'd be able to do in your own reference frame is sequence events. This came before that,
This,
before that.
before that.
Right. And
I remember in the before 4 times.
no, the before 4 times.
Right.
I'm older than you. I'm
Right.
Before 4. So now the sequence of events can be different depending on your reference frame relativistically. You could be moving in a different direction and you'll experience those events in a different sequence than I will. But in my reference frame, like I said, if nothing repeats, time cannot be measured
Right.
with any meaning or repeatability. So it's a fun, interesting philosophical question.
Yeah.
But space can exist without a time, I would think. Space don't need time.
No, it doesn't. I mean, space
just
is
there.
like, I'm here. You know, I'm not going anywhere.
You want to measure something? That's your business.
That's up to you. I don't care what you measure. I'm right here.
So there you go.
That's very cool. Well, there you go, Eric 44.
Oh, I answered that quickly.
That was a great one.
Wow.
Well, we're off like a rocket. This is Maurice Backer. Says, "Dear Lord Nice, dear Dr. Tyson, I am Ilyada from the Netherlands, and I am 12. My question is, what is the one book that every 12-year-old should read? And my name is pronounced Elida." Oh, okay. Thanks for the phonetic there, Elida.
He knew in advance.
I called you Ilyada, and yada, yada, yada. Anyway,
Stop.
no. Okay, Elida, and I didn't get it right. She asked, I should read these beforehand. Anyway, universal respect and greetings.
Delightful. What a mature 12-year-old.
What a very mature 12-year-old.
That's clearly not written by an American kid.
Without a doubt, you know. Yeah.
So I'm very biased here because I only write books that I think people should read to get them enlightened about the universe.
Okay.
And I find gaps in the publishing landscape,
All right.
scientific landscape. I say I'm gonna bridge that
I'm going to
gap.
put something there.
I'm gonna put something there.
Right.
So I can say at age 12, writing like that, and plus the Dutch, they're fluent in English.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah, without a doubt.
okay, so
Even though they're free to
no, that's not the Dutch.
I know.
No, you're mixing that up with the Swedes.
With the Swedes, I know, but it's funnier when I mean, like Dutch is actually that's actually Dutch, but it doesn't make for a funnier, it makes for a funny joke. But anyway, you're right.
My book, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry,
Okay.
has a young people's version of it
Oh,
called Astrophysics
for young people in a hurry.
Now, I keep thinking young people should never be in a hurry.
Yeah, well, they got to get back to them video games. You know what I mean? I gotta
that
read
what
this
that
book quick because Valorant is waiting. Halo ain't gonna play itself. Gotta get back to the video game. Let me see what Neil says before I get back to Roblox.
So that book was conceived for ages 8 to 12,
Oh wow, cool.
which collectively is called the tweens,
Right.
right? And its value is it's not just that is it dumbed down. No, it folds in a lot of my own background when I was that age because I was a geek kid, and so you get to sort of live with me through your own years that you're reading the book.
That's cool.
Okay, so it might have still have value to a precocious 12-year-old.
Right.
But if not, then just go right to Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. It's not astrophysics. It's real astrophysics.
It's astrophysics.
It's astrophysics.
Right.
But I have cherry-picked it for the coolest stuff in the whole universe.
Right.
And that's what's there. From Big Bang.
I call it the book you should read when you don't really want to know the granular details, but you want to be able to have a cool conversation at a cocktail
That'll
party.
totally equip you to do so.
Exactly.
So there's that. But then, if it just wants to have fun,
Right.
definitely the Merlin book.
Oh, okay.
Merlin's Tour of
Merlin's
the
Tour of the
Universe.
Universe.
It's a Q&A. He's asking a question and
Exactly,
answer
it's
right now. It's illustrated by my brother.
Oh, cool.
It's just I think it's a fun book. So forgive me for recommending my own
For
books.
shamelessly promoting myself. No, you're supposed to. That's great.
Yeah, it's not shameless. I'm doing it with
No,
complete
you're doing it with right. I know. And I know what I'm doing. Ain't no shame attached here.
So I think he will enjoy those. I'm certain of it.
Okay.
Because they're written with that in mind. That's all.
right. Now, is it Elida a boy's name or a girl's name? I don't know.
I don't know. He or she.
He or
Elida?
she. Elida. Yeah.
Okay, let's we'll degenderize it.
Yeah, we'll call them they.
They. So, Elida, sorry to misgender you, if in fact that's what I did.
Right.
But I think any of those three books will, as Chuck said, you can get some good reading in between video game playing. Right, okay. Halo ain't going to play itself.
There you go.
All
All
right.
right, here's Andrew Bowen. I'm riding at the edge of our universe since the Big Bang and moving with the expansion. What does it look like when I'm facing back at us? And what does it look like when I'm facing outward ahead?
It looks just like it does here and now.
Ooh,
We are at the horizon
right.
of anybody who's at our horizon.
Exactly.
And anybody at our horizon sees the universe all around them like anybody else does.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
So what would happen is if you imagine this instant, go to our horizon in this instant, light from us emitted 13.8 billion years ago is only now just reaching you.
Right.
You will see all of us as galaxies being born.
Right.
So this would be your horizon.
That's what it is.
That's how that
So
works.
yeah, that's so cool.
We are all equally
We're
as
all-
far away from the origin of the universe as each other.
It's like being in the middle of the ocean.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You go to your horizon, you're still in the ocean.
You're still in the ocean.
Right.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
Wow, great question, Andrew. I love it.
Oh, by the way, we don't know how far the universe extends beyond our horizon.
Right.
Just where there might be
don't
a
know,
point where
right.
land shows up,
Right.
no matter how big the ocean is.
Right.
So there might be a point where you run out of, galaxies in the universe.
and stuff. Right.
Right.
But we don't know that because
Because every direction we look, we see galaxies being born.
Exactly.
So we are deep within a space-time continuum that's much larger than our own bubble. Yeah.
man, that's so.
But you know what happened?
Right. If
If one day
yeah.
the cosmic microwave background disappeared,
Uh-oh.
and that would mean that our horizon, which is expanding, at what rate?
Well, it's got to be. Well, isn't it faster than the speed of light?
No,
now?
no. Just visual horizon.
Oh.
It's expanding at
What,
1
what?
light year per year.
Right.
So in a billion years, will be 14.8 billion
Billion years,
years to our
right.
visual horizon. All right. So the point is, if the cosmic microwave background disappeared,
Right.
and then you just see galaxies up to that edge, that means our horizon is washing over a part of the universe where there is no matter. There are no galaxies.
Oh.
And we would have reached the edge of any material substance in the universe.
Right, because we're now. Wait, is that because we're traveling?
No. No. Our horizon is continuing to move
Oh,
outward.
because it's moving out.
It's
right.
moving
It's
out.
moving out.
So it will always find a galaxy being born.
Right.
Okay. It's,
No,
until it doesn't.
I gotcha. And so, right, once we get past that, that means nothing's there.
Nothing's there.
Oh,
correct.
snap.
That's finally getting beyond the ocean and land.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, that was cool.
In a show like Star Talk, we jump from black holes to biotech to brain chemistry because science is both complex and interconnected. But we don't just throw ideas at you. We organize them, frame them, and make sense of how they fit together. That's exactly what Ground News does for the news. Instead of just feeding you headlines, it zooms out, showing you how stories are being reported, who's reporting them, and what's being left out. Like a telescope for the media landscape, it helps you see not just the brightest signals, but the whole constellation of perspectives. Think of it like a peer review for the news. Instead of just trusting one headline, Ground.News lets you track the evidence and form your own conclusion based on the full picture. And right now, Star Talk listeners can try the top-tier Vantage plan for just $5 a month, which is a 40% discount. So, if you're into science but lean a little skeptical and want to see the whole story, head to ground.news/StarTalk or scan the QR code to subscribe. Stay curious and stay grounded. Now, back to the show.
So let's go to Young Han. Young Han.
Spell young.
Y-O-U-N-G.
Okay. Mhm.
Young Han, who says, Mr. Tyson, I love your work and your show. Can you talk about the Silurian hypothesis and how it impacts how we should view our own species, civilizations, and specialness or lack thereof here on Earth, if advanced civilization is so fleeting and difficult to detect in our own fossil record, is it going to be easier or harder to detect in space?
Wouldn't it be fun if we were just the nth intelligent civilization to rise up on planet Earth? Or even the nth civilization of humans that had rose up
And
destroyed themselves, rose up again multiple times.
right.
So I think we would see a record of this
Somewhere.
in the fossils.
Right.
You'd think.
Right.
There'd be a Statue of Liberty sticking out of the ground.
Damn you! Damn you all to hell!
You apes! There'd be. I mean, that's an example of a Silurian, civilization that predated the planet of the apes, because that was Earth.
Right.
Okay. It seems to me we would find a record of it. But if we find bones, we find other fossilized artifacts of dinosaurs from 65 million years ago.
Right.
Then, and by the way, the biggest mammals of the day were these tiny little rodents running underfoot, trying to not get eaten by T-Rex as hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't presume that there were big brain mammals before that, because that was the origin of the mammals on Earth.
Right.
Around that time. Right.
Is there a possibility that the civilization before us were not mammalian?
Okay, so I haven't seen any like dinosaur casinos or anything left over. No, I mean, just you would see things.
Right.
We're not ignorant of the history of what happened in Earth's crust. Here's where you'd have a problem.
Go ahead.
You can ask the question, what is the time scale for all of Earth's crust to get subducted back down and come out in a volcano?
Oh,
because that would destroy all evidence.
Right, all the evidence would be gone because it become molten, and then it would spew out again and cover the Earth.
Completely gone.
Right.
Okay, so different parts of the Earth are younger than other parts.
Right.
Like the middle of Iceland is brand new.
Right.
Like made yesterday.
All of the big island of Hawaii.
Iceland is on the mid-Atlantic ridge that is spewing out. I visited there recently.
Yeah.
This is a whole new land between where I was standing and another ledge on the other side. And I did the math because continents drift about the rate your fingernails grow.
Oh, wow.
So I did it fast, and I calculated how many millions of years that would have taken. But still, it's new land compared to other places.
Okay.
You go to places where it's not regenerated that rapidly, and you don't find other evidence.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's very unlikely. Unless the dinosaurs were like the ABC TV show that used to be
what TV show
called Dinosaurs, where you never saw that.
No,
I just remember it was a little dinosaur, and
I just remember the cartoon Land Before Time. I remember that one.
A Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Do I know that one?
It's a cartoon movie. Yeah.
I don't think I know that one. But yeah, dinosaurs. There was like.
Oh, they were just living.
They were just living like regular human beings. They had jobs. They had everybody worked for one corporation called the We Say So Corporation. And
how did I miss this?
Yeah, and then there was one little baby dinosaur, and every time his father would come in the room, he would jump on his head and hit him with a pot and go, "Not the mama, not the mama." In other words, like, I don't want you. Get me, mom.
So this is like the Flintstones, except they're dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a whole world
just like the Flintstones, but all run by dinosaurs.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a pretty wild little show back in the day.
Okay. There's the thing about like the size of their brains. You know, there's an issue there.
Oh, okay.
Just the higher levels
the
of
higher
thought.
levels of thought that might not be resident
not be happening
in a dinosaur whose brain
so
is.
It's an intriguing idea.
Yeah.
And I think we would see evidence of it, and we don't.
Gotcha.
And so in that case, the absence of evidence is evidence of absence.
Ooh, I love it.
Which is not always the case.
Not always the case.
Yes.
All right, this is James H. English, who says, "Hello, Dr. Tyson, Lord Nice." It's James from Denmark. By the way, James, we apologize. We're so sorry. And, all this talk of Greenland, we have nothing to do with it, okay? We're just letting you know. All right. It's like, it's like our uncle got into the liquor cabinet while he was on his meds, and now he's just sitting in a chair going, I know we should buy Greenland. That's what I think. So I'm sorry. So here's what James says. I heard on a previous episode that what we think of as singularities at the heart of a black hole may not actually exist. But I'm not sure I understood. We know black holes exist, but what does it mean to say the singularities may just be mathematical artifacts?
Yeah, good question.
That's
Love these.
Pretty wild.
So if you just follow general relativity math,
Right.
the object collapses under its own weight.
Mm-hmm.
As it collapses, the gravity on its surface continues to rise. It reaches a point where the gravity on the surface has an escape velocity greater than the speed of light. At that point, light does not escape, but it continues to collapse. When we talk about the size of a black hole, functionally, we're talking about the size of the event horizon.
Mm-hmm.
But inside the event horizon, all bets are off. So the matter keeps shrinking. According to the general theory of relativity, the gravity is so severe that nothing can stop it. And it shrinks to zero volume.
Yeah, right. And wow,
And that's just crazy. What
right.
does that even mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
We all presume that there's some other law of physics that's going to prevent that, but that calculation is at the limits of the applicability of the general theory of relativity.
Gotcha.
So that's why we know in advance that the general theory of relativity has limits.
Right.
Limits to its applicability.
There you go.
Right. Whereas quantum physics have yet to find a limit.
Right.
And we got smart people on that frontier, string theorists, who are trying to send the math into that singularity to try to resolve that problem. And it's
because if you do, then you reconcile general relativity with quantum physics.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and more playfully, this fact that it goes to zero.
Right.
Some people say that's where God divides by zero.
Okay.
Because remember, you're not supposed to.
You can't do that, or you're not supposed to do it. Right.
Zero.
I still don't know why. I'm just like,
Have you tried it?
Because 0 divided by 0 is I got nothing.
No, that's undefined.
Right. That's my point, but I can define it. I started with nothing. I divided nothing. I got
nothing. From nothing, leave
there you go.
nothing.
That's a good song.
Okay,
Nothing
thank
from
you,
nothing,
Billy
leaves
Preston.
nothing.
When I first heard that song, I said, really? Is that the best math you can give me in this disco era? I was in high school when that came
everybody
out.
was high on cocaine.
Oh.
They weren't trying to do
It's
math.
like, who are you trying to impress with this math here?
Certainly.
I can hook you up with some good formulas.
Oh, that's so funny.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. This is Michael Trilling. He says, I'm an artist and I have been working in stained glass recently.
Ooh.
It had me thinking, how can light travel through some materials but not others? What makes something transparent at an atomic level?
Yeah, so I don't have a good answer for that. I have an answer, but I know in advance
it's not good.
Correct. So I'm giving like a just so answer.
All
to
right.
it, okay. So transparent media, there's nothing to change the pathway of the light through the medium, and so it maintains a straight direction.
Okay.
Okay. And so it comes out the other side. You see whatever was on the previous side of that material. If the structure of the lattice or the molecules or the atoms is such that the light is either absorbed or dispersed, because it can still be transparent to light, but you can't see through it.
Right.
What's the word for translucent?
Translucent. Right.
Okay. Light still gets through.
Frosted glass.
But frosted glass. But the path the light took was varied, and so there's no coherent image that comes through to the other side.
Oh, gotcha.
But here's a little known fact. As this person surely knows, light travels slower in a medium than it travels in a vacuum.
Right.
It travels slowest in a diamond, which helps it internally reflect so that when light comes in from one direction, it pops out a different direction.
Right.
When it's cut, when the facets are just right.
Right.
So that's why diamonds have a certain radiance of their own when they're just really messing with the light that came in.
So Rihanna was wrong. It's not shine bright like a diamond. It's just refract light like a diamond.
What was that from? Ocean's 8?
No, she
song?
has a song, Shine Bright Like a Diamond.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
Everybody
It's not
loves
shining.
it.
It's not shining.
Yeah, it's not shining at all.
Right.
Yeah,
Is that why they put her in Ocean's 8?
probably. And she's Rihanna.
Okay. Okay, couple more. Go.
All right, here we go. Alex Romillion says this. Greetings, Dr. Tyson and your ragtag team of lifelong learners. I'm Alex from Northeast England. My question, there's a lot of talk about mining the moon. Wouldn't that be a bad idea, considering if we're transferring mass from the moon to Earth, we won't make the moon lighter because of the gravitational effects it has on Earth, i.e. the tides? To weaken over time and eventually stop, what other effects could it have? Regards from a lifelong learner.
I love it. And I love lifelong learners.
Yes.
Thank you for checking in.
Yes.
Okay. Couple of things.
Couple things.
First, two things. So it is likely that whatever we mine on the moon will stay on the moon or go to other places in the solar system where we're doing work.
Right.
It's not likely that the moon has something so valuable that we need to bring
it back to Earth.
Especially since the moon was carved out of our crust in a collision between a Mars-sized protoplanet and Earth.
Right.
It sideswipes up, our crust goes into orbit, coalesces to form the moon.
Right.
And so the moon it's our crust.
That's probably not too valuable.
No, it's not too valuable. Not too valuable.
Yeah.
To go there and then bring it back. So now, but suppose we did. Suppose we mined 100% of the moon.
All right.
Brought the whole damn moon back piece by piece.
I love it.
Okay? All right, we still have tides.
Right.
From
the sun.
The sun.
All right, because
sun tides are about a third as strong as the moon tides.
Right.
All right, so you still have tides. Not as big, not as bodacious, but you still have tides. How much heavier does Earth weigh? The moon is a little more than 1% the mass of the Earth.
Oh, that's nothing.
That's nothing.
I ain't doing that.
That ain't doing that.
That's a
like if you weigh 100
a mosquito on an elephant.
So if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you'd weigh 101 pounds and a little and change.
No, that's barely
and you
worth.
Fluctuate that.
That's
just
not worth the trip.
Between meals and between poop.
Right.
Okay. You fluctuate.
Yeah, that happens to me every morning. You know what I mean? Get up on the scale like, damn. Go to the bathroom. All right.
So yeah, it's not. Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's a big moon, but Earth is even bigger.
There you go.
Yeah, we good.
All right. This is Bas Oosterveld. And Bas says, greetings, Dr. Tyson, Sir Chuck. Bas from the Netherlands here. Something that's bothered me for a while is the term time.
Ooh.
Why do we still call it that? Time isn't absolute. It's relative and experienced differently depending on our motion through space-time. A photon doesn't experience time at all.
Right.
Wouldn't it perhaps be better to rename time in a scientific context? Would something like observer-related perception of reality not be a better representative of what we should call time? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have a beautiful day. I don't have more time for this, Mr. Oosterveld. Okay.
I have one answer.
So it's a cool little thing that he's positing.
Time has one syllable.
Exactly.
And what he read there, count the syllables. Count the syllables.
Observer, relative, perception of reality.
It's 14 syllables.
14 syllables.
Time has one syllable.
Right, exactly.
So take that word and make it mean what we want it to mean.
And by the way,
and that's the meaning of the word.
And you can't even say what time is it with his. You would have to say, what is your observer-related perception of reality right now?
And there's certain things that we do just because it's simple. For example, our words that describe the sun and the horizon are pre-Copernican. I don't say to you, Chuck, at what time does Earth rotate such that our sight line to the horizon reveals the sun sitting out there in space? Instead, I say, when sunrise.
And when sunset.
And when sunset.
Right.
And I think we're okay with that.
Yeah. Because the sun didn't really rise at all.
Well, from your point of view.
Right.
But still, it's a simple two-syllable word.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I don't mind precision, but not at the expense of economy.
All right. Very cool. All right, here we go. This is Zach Sweet. And Zach says, hello, Dr. Tyson, Lord Nice. Zach here from Moonsville, New York, or Munsville, New York. You've talked about knowing mathematically how to create a wormhole in previous cosmic queries and other explainers. I was wondering, what is keeping us from taking the mathematics from paper and applying them to the physical world, going from script to screen, so to speak?
Oh, I like that.
Thanks in advance.
I like that. So the problem is we're missing an ingredient.
Oh, really?
Yes. We need matter
Mm-hmm.
or some substance that has negative gravity.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So matter has gravity.
Right.
So matter can make black holes where you're compressing things down into one place.
Right.
And a wormhole requires you pry open the fabric of space-time.
Gotcha.
So you'd be parking this negative matter, this negative gravity substance, in a way that you pried open a tunnel through
The
space-time.
fabric of space-time
The fabric
itself.
of space-time itself.
Wow.
So we would know how to configure it,
Right.
how much of it we need,
Right.
but we don't have it.
Gotcha.
Now, there are people who say, well, what about dark energy? That's a negative gravity
Negative
pressure
gravity
in the
pressure
in the
vacuum of space. Right.
Since we don't know what it is, I'm not saying let's set up a factory to make wormholes out of it. I'm not ready to do that.
Okay. Right.
And if one day we know what it is and then we can harness it and then
Right.
package it and sell it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm all in for wormholes. Oh my gosh.
That'd be very cool.
I want wormholes everywhere.
Yeah.
Like in the back of your refrigerator connected to your grocer.
Okay. Now you're going Homer Simpson on me.
No, I'm running low on milk to check on you.
I just reach into the refrigerator. I'm at the grocery store, grab some milk.
Oh, no,
pull
no,
it
the
back.
grocer does that for you.
Oh,
They just
he'll
keep
have
you
your
stocked.
package.
They-
He stocks your fridge from the
Yes.
wormhole.
Because they just open it up.
All right, I take it back. That's dope.
That's totally dope.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're never low on any supply, and they'll know the rate, and you don't have to go travel.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh.
Wow, that is fresh direct.
That's the wormhole edition of Fresh Direct.
Exactly.
So, and there's so many things that we just take for granted require transportation systems that would just be rendered obsolete with wormholes, such as on Star Trek, the transporter.
Right. Right. You don't need to deconstruct your
Dematerialize.
entire body molecularly, put it into a pattern buffer, and then beam it somewhere and recreate it,
Hoping you get the
hoping that you
molecules
get the
straight.
same pattern in the exact same
With all the
sequence.
neurosynaptic
right.
memories and everything.
Yeah, you just walk through a portal and you're there.
There you're there.
Yeah, that's
You're there.
Yeah, exactly.
It would render that
It would-
solution to travel obsolete.
Yeah, but it would just ruin like the most awesome effect that Star Trek came up with, which is it's very cool.
All right, Chuck, we got time for two more.
All right,
We
well,
getting a lot done in
we
this
got
one.
a lot done today.
Wow.
All right, here we go.
Am I getting better at giving short answers, maybe?
I think the questions might be helping. No, I'm joking. Oh, yes. Here we go. This is James Liggett. Hi, y'all. This is James from Midland, Texas,
Midland, Texas. I
The-
know Midland, Texas.
the place where baby Jessica fell down the well. James, let me explain something to
Stop.
you, James. Let me just help you out for a second.
No, stop.
That is not a claim to fame.
Stop.
That y'all let a little baby fall down a hole and that you couldn't get her out and that the whole country
The
had to
whole
find
country.
about it.
The whole country
The
learned
whole
about
country learned about it before you were able to get this child out of that hole. Okay.
it. I know Midland. It's the Twin Cities there. Midland, Odessa.
Midland and Odessa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Midland. The rich folk live in Midland.
Oh,
And-
okay.
Well, back when I was there, that was
That was the
it
deal.
a very clearly understood divide
I got you.
in the landscape.
All right.
All right.
Well, James says this: since photons have no mass, how do they carry the image of their source to, say, a telescope or an eyeball? So what does it mean to say we see something because we process photons? There seems to be nothing there in a photon to process.
Ooh.
Where
Love it.
in the mass,
Love it. Love
in the massless energy of a photon is this information that we receive? This keeps bugging me, man. So please help.
Let me
Thanks.
hook up my boy from Midland.
From Midland. All right now.
Midland, Texas.
Midland, Texas.
Midland.
Mhm.
So, here you go.
Here we go.
If you took all the photons and just crammed them through the one little opening and didn't have a lens,
Right.
then you would not have an image. You would just have light. That's what we do when we take a spectrum of an object.
Uh-huh.
We take all the light, funnel it down into what's called a slit, goes through the prism or equivalent device, and you see how much energy, how many photons of different wavelengths is coming from that source. It's not an image at all.
It's not an image.
You don't know what the hell the thing looks like.
Right.
But you have this many that are red, this many blue photons. This has extra photons in a particular place because an atom is sending you energy extra in that zone. And you just look at the spectrum, and that is a no image measurement of the object. If you take the photons and have a lens, then there's a photon that came from your nose, a photon that came from your toe, a photon that came from the top of your head. It's a different color because your hair is black, your skin is brown, your shoes are red, and so this will be a red photon, this will be a black photon. And the lens reconstructs where they came from onto your detector. You focus it up, the
Now you
photon
got an
lands
image.
exactly according to what the image was. So you're right, a photon alone contains no image information. You need the ensemble of photons to do so.
Wow. Dude, that was a really good question.
Yeah, and
James.
I hope he feels good about that.
Yeah, that you should be. I learned something just then. That's really damn cool. All right, well, last question. As
Last
you
question.
said,
All right.
this is Alan
So we
Short.
went from the Netherlands to Midland, Odessa, to Denmark,
Yep.
to northeast England.
Well, you're going to love this one. This is Alan Short from Thailand.
Thailand.
No, I'm joking. I'm lying. This is Alan Short from Italy.
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 grazie.
Buongiorno, Alan. He says, with a profound admiration and the utmost awe of Professor Tyson and HRH Chuck Nice. I don't know what HRH means.
His Royal Highness.
I'll take it.
And when I was a kid, when we have juvenile sense of humor, we'd say His Royal Hiney.
Yeah, I was about to say, and that's because that's exactly, I was going to say Royal Hind Parts, but don't, yeah, Royal Hiney. Okay, according to one theory, our universe is located inside of a black hole. If this is the case, where is our universe's singularity? Likewise, seeing as we have proof that our universe is expanding, why are we not seeing other black holes, presumably themselves being self-contained universes, expanding and taking over our universe with much love? Thank you, Alan.
Brian Green would be better to answer that, so
Yeah?
I'll give what I can.
Okay.
All right, so a couple of things.
All right.
Some equations related to a black hole apply to our entire universe,
Okay.
such as we have an event horizon. We have a horizon.
Right, we
It's
do.
analogous to event horizon of a black hole.
Correct.
If you look at the density of matter in the universe out to that event horizon, it is the density of matter you would need to make a black hole the size of our universe. But is it a black hole? Okay. And so if it is, then there ought to be a singularity somewhere that we haven't seen. We don't know where it is.
Right.
Okay. And so
Unless we're just the information of the black hole.
Oh.
And so what we're
The
seeing
holographic
is the holographic information of the black hole. The black hole is inside
I
our
want to be
black
more
hole.
than information. I want to be a boy. And that's Italian. That's a Pinocchio
That's
reference.
Pinocchio reference.
Oh my God.
We have done it, people. That is how you stick a landing. Go to Italy and end up with Pinocchio. All right.
So that could be just where the analogy breaks
Right.
between the universe and what a
Yeah.
black hole is.
So you have a couple similarities.
But one
with
last
that.
point, and
Go
we'll
ahead.
end on this.
Go ahead.
That the equations of a black hole, and there's a book here that I can dig out that will describe them. And our guy correctly noted that a whole new space-time opens up inside the black hole. If you look back at us, the future history of the universe runs its course, and a whole other space-time opens up. So each black hole would contain a universe.
A universe.
But that universe is not sharing the space-time of our universe.
Right.
So they're worried, will it fill up or bump in? No, in higher dimensions, you can fit everything.
Right. It doesn't make a difference.
That's right. You can fit it all.
That's so cool.
Just a quick thing. You have a sheet of paper that goes to infinity.
Right.
It's 2 dimensions. If I go into a third dimension, I can have another sheet of paper that goes to infinity. And it does not intersect the first.
Exactly.
In fact, I can have an infinite number of infinite sheets of paper.
One above the other.
Correct. So when you add higher dimensions, you don't have to think or worry about, stepping on each other's toes.
Cool.
It can happen.
Right.
It's not a thing.
Right. All right.
Yeah. I think we got to call it quits there, Chuck.
Well, that was a good one.
That was very hodgepodge.
Yeah, I like it. I like it when they're all over the place all over the world.
All over the world. All right. Very good. This has been a Star Talk Cosmic Queries Grab Bag Edition. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Love those. Neil, Chuck, thanks for doing it.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist, reporting from my office, the Hayden Planetarium. As always, keep looking up.
sitting. It's quite a telling sign to me that their concerns went pretty deep.
And why did OceanGate and Boeing stop working together?
I don't know exactly, you know. I think maybe we were too expensive.
Even when it was obvious that Boeing wasn't going to build the sub, Stockton kind of had the recipe book. And then I think Stockton realized that he needed some engineering expertise in-house. You couldn't contract everything out to University of Washington, APL.
As the director of engineering, did you make all engineering decisions?
No.
Did you make any engineering decisions?
Yes.
And who would make the majority of the engineering decisions?
It was Stockton. Most people would just eventually back down from Stockton. Like it was almost death by 1,000 cuts.
So Tony came on board, I think 2016. He centralized a lot of the engineering expertise and hired other engineers and built up the engineering team that were to really replace UW, to do their own designs and to create a finished vessel.
Stockton turned to me and said, "Well, that's your problem."
The wreck itself, it lies off Nantucket. We steamed out with the submersible Cyclops 1. We knew it was going to be the test for the company and was going to be very dangerous.
We're going to stay down as long as possible. We have a new comms procedure. We're going to go 2 hours. We're going to drop 100 meters up current, best guess.
Like Titanic, the plan was to actually map the entire wreck. I was going to be taking 4 of the paying passengers down. But on the day of diving, Stockton decided he no longer wanted me in the sub. He was going to be taking the passengers down, and that's when I protested. The wreck is decaying at a rapid rate. It's very, very dangerous. There's a lot of hazards. He just decided he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he was the CEO. So we did lock heads on that day. I eventually persuaded him to allow me to come in the sub, but he wanted to pilot it.
I'll pass it right back into yourself, man.
I'm going to start the camera now. Go for it. Go ahead and bend it well.
Bend it well. Dive, dive.
Roger, liftoff.
Clear the large.
Yeah.
Roger, read view topside. We are 3-2 meters descending.
Comms check. All good at 40 meters.
So tell me when you get bottom contact, we are at 8 meters off.
Nothing yet.
There it is.
There it is.
It's right there, see it?
Okay, bring it in. Fully empty.
Oh.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You see it perfectly well. Back the lights.
Can we,
Rotate a little bit more.
Wow, we're very, very close.
Don't go too down, too far down.
There's debris all around us.
Yeah. Right, okay.
Okay, that's a shot right out here.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I'm just saying, we're a little close. I'm not telling you.
Just tell me, are we moving?
He came down, drove forward 3 meters away from the bow. Basically, he brought us into a debris field.
Okay, I'm gonna put some lights on. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna motor to the 3 o'clock, so if we drift past it.
Okay.
Okay? Now the wreck's only 3 meters off to the port side. Stop. So, oh, come down, come down, come down. Come down, come down. Calm down. Keep coming down. Okay, if you get nothing ahead of you, kick ahead, okay? Kicking ahead slowly, slowly.
What is it?
I don't know. Just keep going. About a hull. He brought us in to the starboard side and jammed us in underneath the bow. So he had us jammed good and proper. I said to him, please don't do anything, just give me the controller. If we went straight up, we're not gonna hit it, we're gonna get damn close to it. No, you are gonna hit it. For sure. Chris, if you can keep an eyeball out of the port side of the viewport, okay, we're just looking for any cables, any wires. Nothing. He didn't have a lot of experience in piloting subs. Right, it's a piece of debris, for sure. It's right above us. At that point, I got us clear, I motored 50 meters away, turned us round, and I said, that is what we were supposed to have fucking done on the dive. And he said, thank you, I owe you one.
Topside, for information, we are 30 meters off the bow, returning to surface. Current depth 52 meters.
Underneath the bow. I don't even know if I want to hear this story. Literally, you could see it in the dog port. Thank you. And he was right behind us. David took over.
Yeah. David was looking up.
He looked up on the dog
We
port.
gotta go straight. Big hill.
I mean, we were right underneath the bow. Right. He saw definitely there's a wreck down there. It's big.
The passengers were hugging, but with Stockton, it was a complete turnaround for me.
1, 3, 1, 2.
He never really spoke to me the rest of the trip. The dynamic changed. After the Andrea Doria, I started getting cut out by senior management from the Titan project. I was dropped from all email communications, verbal communications. I was totally out of the loop, but at the same time, I am the chief pilot. I was the director of Marine Ops. It was going to be me that was going to be doing all these dives. Obviously, in my head, I'm like, this isn't right. It's not right. Being me, very vocal, I spoke to some of the board of directors when they came in. I would speak to Stockton on a regular basis. Chief Operating Officer, Stockton's wife, all these people that basically ran this company, and I would speak to them and express my concerns. And because it didn't just come in as a ready-built sub, I was seeing every single piece, and pretty much every single piece had an issue.
Today is a critical joining of the titanium and the carbon fiber. That seal needs to be uniform and small, but not too small.
This is the point of no return right here.
The engineering director, Tony Nissen, we used to argue on a regular basis.
Level, do a good cleaning, check the surface out.
He brought in people that had very little experience from the manned submersible industry. A lot of them were fresh out of college.
Mark Walsh is lead electrical engineer and a recent grad of WSU Engineering School in Everett. 24-year-old Nicholas Nelson is too.
Just knowing that we're sending something down to 4,000 meters and it's our design that's being brought there is just amazing.
For a while, David would come to me and I kind of want to use the word complain, but really it's David's way of expressing his concern.
At the time, I had no experience of carbon fiber, but for the untrained eye, it was like Swiss cheese. You could actually see the porosity, you could see the delaminations, you could see all the voids.
When they eventually sealed up the titanium interface rings, they took it out into the car park at Everett and sprayed it with truck bed liner.
Stockton was annoyed if somebody just questioned the idea of what we were doing. He very much took that personally.
An Everett-based company just finished building a submarine that they'll take to the Titanic this summer.
So this is a laser scanner.
OceanGate Engineering Director Tony Nissen is showing off some of the high-tech equipment he and his team are about to install on their newest 5-person sub, Titan. New cameras will capture 4K resolution.
As these components were actually getting put together, I was the only person to stand up to them and say, you have to get this thing inspected. We have to get the third-party inspectors in. Are you getting them in? We are dealing with it. We are dealing with it. I was fobbed off on every occasion.
Brings a tear to my eye. It's a lot of pain to get here. It was a lot of pain to get here. We did this extremely fast.
We were at lunch one day at OceanGate, and Stockton said that he decided that he saw no need for classification for third-party oversight.
How'd that go over at lunch?
I stood up and I said, I'm sorry, I can't be part of this conversation, nor can I be associated with OceanGate or this vehicle in any way. And I left. He had every contact in the submersible industry telling him not to do this. But once you start down the path of doing it entirely yourself, when you realize you've taken the wrong turn right back at the beginning, particularly for Stockton, then you have to admit that you were wrong. That's a big pill to swallow.
Ready to rock and roll.
They said to me, this is getting handed off to you in the coming weeks. I'm like, guys, I've already said, we're not diving this. So Stockton said to me, okay, I want you to go out there and carry out an inspection of the Titan. Over a number of days, I did tests. I took photographs. From there, drafted what I thought was a very nice email stating, at the end of the day, the responsibility lies with me, and I sent that out on the 18th. Following morning, I get an email. We're going to be holding a meeting. It was myself, there was Bonnie Carroll, the HR director, Scott Griffiths, quality assurance director. I had Stockton Rush, the CEO, and Tony Nissen.
There you go. So what is today? 18th? 19th, 1 o'clock. Recording this. Okay, so first question. Give me some background. What brought this on? How long have you had some of these concerns?
Basically, I'm not naive. I could sense the mood.
Part of it is I also want to know what led up to this and what's your goal with this document?
No, the goal for this document for me is the safety of anybody that goes in there, including you.
I could tell in Stockton's voice he was nervous, he was shaking, I could see his hands.
He was angry. He was so angry. It's not the most angry I've seen him or heard. But that day was pretty bad.
It's completely opposite of what everyone else says. Everyone says, oh, carbon fiber can't handle compression. They're full of shit, and I've proven them to be full of shit. You know, it's been an 8-year project. I know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. So, keep going.
In terms of you going in the submersible, I am so against you doing it.
I understand.
We should be putting that sub on a wire with everything that's experimental.
I know that's your issue.
So,
and a wire is not without safety issues, for one. Well, and secondly, this is how we're doing it, period. Done. That's it. I've looked at it. You know, what you do is you set a testing program where you do it incrementally. It's not going to just go to 3100 and be perfect, and at 3200 it all goes away. That ain't gonna happen, and I will put my life on the line to say that ain't gonna happen.
Why test something with people in it? I don't understand that. To me, it was just sheer arrogance.
I don't want anybody there. I don't want anybody in this company who is uncomfortable with what we're doing. We're doing weird shit here, and I am definitely out of the mold. There's no question. I'm doing things that are completely non-standard, and I'm sure the industry thinks I'm a fucking idiot. That's fine. They've been doing that for 8 years. And I'm going to continue on the way I'm doing, but I'm not going to force people to join my religion if they don't want to.
I didn't know what to say, but I was blown away that at this point they were willing to play Russian roulette.
Is there a cure?
We need David on this crew. In my opinion, we need him here.
King Stockton's made a decision. I just feel a tad let down right now with your comments. I'm pretty gutted, to be honest with you. This is the first time on paper I've ever put any health and safety concerns. My God, Stockton, you know, every expedition we've had issues. And I've been there for you. Every single expedition.
I'm not denying that.
Do you now want to let me go? That's the question.
I don't see we have a choice.
I feel bad for David. I really do. It shouldn't have happened. That day, Stockton told me it would be nothing for him to spend $50,000 to ruin somebody's life.
Did he say that to you in regards to David?
Yeah. That changed my life in that company. Changed how I had to manage the engineering department. I had to make sure that nobody spoke up. I worked for somebody that is probably borderline clinical psychopath, but definitely a narcissist. How do you manage a person like that who owns the company?
I knew at that moment I couldn't work at that company anymore. I went home and updated my LinkedIn profile, and obviously I didn't say anything to Stockton or Neil at that point. And Stockton went along as though, okay, now Bonnie is going to be our next lead pilot, and this is going to be great. We're going to have a female lead pilot. This is going to play well to the media. And I just remember thinking, what is happening? Like, are you nuts? I'm an accountant. I decided to leave. I don't think I said 2 words to Stockton, and that's where I left it at.
I had stuck with the company for over a year as an intern. Near the end of my senior year of university, they sent me to the Bahamas. Titan was down there testing. That was kind of like, all right, you can help work on the stuff, and if it's something that works out for both of us, then we can take you on full time and give you a job offer. It was my first work trip.
So we've got dive 39, objective of a 4,200 meter depth. We've got, a long day ahead of us, so we're going to be starting operations tonight. The game plan is to start vessel prep at 3 a.m.
At the beginning, Stockton did the dives by himself in Titan.
Okay. Got the recorder on. Voice recorder is on. It is 3:55 a.m. in sunny Marsh Harbor.
He had said it was loud, but he had said that's what we expected. That's the carbon fiber seasoning. I've never heard of seasoning a hole.
Okay. You get quite a bit of noise. I've got that on the microphone. Quite attention-getting pops. Crack. That will get your attention.
Stockton wanted one acoustic sensor on there. I put 18 strain gauges and 9 acoustic sensors. He was angry that I did that. He was more afraid of being lost at sea, sitting on the surface, than he was of the vehicle imploding.
Unbelievable. 39, 38 meters, Dana.
Tighten your bolts are out, you can pressurize it out.
Copy that, will do. Hey! That's right. 17.3 hours, another record. I think James Cameron's the only other person to be in the sub that long alone as well. Amazing accomplishment, everybody. Let's celebrate.
Jake, what's for?
Oh, okay. Yeah, funny thing is, this was mission 39. The depth I got on the camera, 3939. I did it on purpose just for that. I could have easily gone to 4, but why? Anybody who doesn't call it 3939.4 is an ass. It violates the NAR, and then we don't care. It's like, yeah, that's not good enough. Fuck you.
Scratch that camera and say,
That's right. You're gonna edit it to that. Yeah. 4039. Yeah. Yeah. Lighter them, unloaded them all in there. Okay.
We were looking at the data, and I told Stockton, I said, look, we don't know what good looks like. What I do know is it shouldn't look like that. If your hearing or your acoustic monitoring system is showing you spikes, it's still breaking. You don't want to hear that anymore, because if it's not breaking, it's intact.
Congratulations, man. Thank you. Awesome.
Do you think that Stockton understood the risks?
No. He didn't. Allegedly, he's a degreed aerospace engineer, but there are scientific principles that he wholly didn't understand. "2019 was going to be the first Titanic mission. He was angry I wouldn't sign off on it. You need another dive. Like, we need a clean dive out of this.
Bahamas testing process went on for months.
All right, Mark, let it go. Again. Again.
It was a bit of a chaos, to be honest. There were a lot of problems with the electrical systems, which needed replacing.
Okay, we're good. Lock me up.
And at that point, they'd already had some really serious concerns about what was going on with that hull, the noises it was making.
Looking good. Hold that line. Hold that line. Okay, a little bit to starboard.
It took 4 months from Stockton's solo dive for them to dive the Titan again to a deep test. On board that day was another submersible expert, Carl Stanley. He had built his own submarine, he was operating it for tourism down in Honduras, and Stockton was proud and wanted to show off the Titan.
My relationship with Stockton goes back at least 10, possibly up to 15 years. When I learned that he was making a carbon fiber sub, I was excited about it. I went out to Washington and I gave him a week of free labor working on the first version of the launch and recovery vehicle with the understanding that one day, somewhere, that I was going to get a ride. We dove over 12,000 feet.
40 to the bottom.
40 meters to the bottom?
I do not have visuals.
The cracking sounds would amplify when you got deeper.
So after you came up from the dive, did you partake in any meeting where the results of the real-time monitoring acoustic sensors were examined by the group and tried to isolate where the sound occurred?
That information was not shared with me. He didn't think much of he didn't have me sign a waiver. Never gave me a spiel about how everything's transparent and please ask any questions. It was just like, you're here, let's go.
What's good, gentlemen? How are you doing? Hey!
After the dive, Carl and Stockton exchanged emails.
You say the sounds we observed yesterday do not seem consistent with glue joints breaking, air cavities breaking. The only question in my mind is if it will fail catastrophically.
At any point within those emails, were you made aware that a crack was identified in the hull?
I had tickets to St. John's. I was going to be a part of the topside team. We were planning out a lot. We had mobilized and shipped containers, and then one of our pilots found a crack in the sub.
Okay, good. Go in with the needle nose another inch. Okay, right there.
Right there?
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah. Do it again. I can see not the paint moving, but I see hole moving in and out.
Black moving?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
They brought everything back from the Bahamas, and they ended up having some of the engineering team grind out the carbon fiber hull to see how deep in the crack went. That was not public knowledge, and they said, do not say anything to anyone.
After I got back from the Bahamas and cutting out a lot of the crack, and he told me that 2 people on the board told him that I should have known that this problem was there. And I told Stockton, I did know, and I told you it was there. And in fact, I wrote a report that showed that it was there. And Stockton said, well, one of us has to go, and it's not going to be me. Okay.
A few engineering folks were fired. I was very surprised. We had a meeting 6 days before my flight to St. John's. Coincidentally, the boat canceled as well. To the public, Stockton said, obviously we need a topside vessel. And they said, yeah, we're not going. And then it was later brought out to the public, you know, we're going to redo this hull. And I don't think it was ever quite explicitly said why. I was like, I should just quit.
I wasn't going to fight him. I wasn't going to go to the board because Stockton stated clearly how he likes to ruin a life.
Okay, recorder is on. For the U.S. Department of Labor, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, I am conducting an intake interview of Mr. David Lockridge.
Mr. Lockridge contacted our office in 2018. Initially, I thought his case seemed like it was pretty strong.
Now, most submersibles out there, they are classed under the 6 agencies, Lloyd's, ABS, DMV, GL. The owner turned around just after Christmas and said, no, we're not classing anything, so it's not going to be classed, it's not going to be insured.
Within days of that happening, OceanGate were informed. I was enrolled under the Whistleblower Protection Scheme. I was told that I would be protected.
OceanGate did respond. They filed a lawsuit against Mr. Lockridge.
It was, we're coming after you, your wife, your house, your green card, everything. I mean, it was a crusade. How dare you stand up against me?
Wankers. That's on camera. Wanker's a good word over here?
It's called the Whistleblower Protection Program, right?
Unfortunately, whistleblowers, they're not protected from retaliation. We're not like the, witness protection program or something like that. What we do is investigate.
The intent was to shut us down. Basically, keep me quiet so they could proceed with their project, get out to Titanic, and take people out there.
This next set of questions, when I say Titan Hall for these questions, I am specifically talking about the second Titan Hall.
Okay.
Can you describe the third scale model testing?
I don't have those tests in front of me. I didn't get them, but I know that it failed. So we knew that we had to do something different because it wasn't working.
After the crack happened, I wanted to quit. That's when they're like, you know what, we're gonna remake the hull for Titan in a better way. And I was like, okay, they're doing the right thing. I can stay.
There was a lot of pressure when this first hull failed. They suddenly realized not only can we not get revenue coming in this year, we now have to replace either that hull or the whole vessel. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars by the time you put in people's time and effort.
Right before the new year, Stockton and the new engineering head that they had brought on offered me a position as a project manager to help out with the timeline management of the new hull. They also said, we want to train you as a submersible pilot. We want to bring you full-time onto the operations team. Stockton, he had said, we want you to be a female young pilot. We want you to be the face of the company. He says he doesn't want a 60-year-old man or something. When I asked for a raise, they said, no, this is lateral. And then, because I think that you might ask me again why I stayed.
Yes, I will.
It was COVID. And was watching all my friends throughout the pandemic get laid off everywhere. And I was like, okay, if I have a job, cling on to it.
Money got tight. He realized suddenly we're looking at probably a 2-year runway before you can dive again. Stockton downsizes the engineering team.
There were not a lot of big meetings regarding the build of the new hull. It was oftentimes the head of engineering, the COO, and Stockton, and myself. They were working with a lot of different carbon fiber vendors, and the group that they hired to make it, they were carbon fiber industry experts, but they had not ever made a submersible before. The third scale model was built and then tested in July of 2020. It failed at 3,000 meters. And that was pretty disheartening, I think, for the team. But then for me, it was kind of the response to that.
So to confirm, there was no successful third scale model test to Titanic depth prior to going to this full scale.
That's
hull.
correct. That's correct.
They started on the full-size hull.
Were you able to talk to anyone about it?
Yeah. I did speak up. A lot of people did. Like, they discussed their concerns. They're like, what do you mean? Like, this failed. You're going to keep going? Stockton was just so set on getting to the Titanic that nothing that anybody said made much of a difference. And I was not going to bolt anyone inside of that sub. And that was something that a lot of my coworkers at the time agreed on, and none of which stayed with the company much longer. And they said, you either stick with us or you don't. And I said, okay, I'm putting in my 2 weeks.
Did you track what was happening after you left with the new hull?
Yeah, as best I could. I was just hoping they weren't going to go.
To this day, we, the journalists, don't know how much we were misled by whatever Stockton told us. I'm a correspondent for CBS Sunday Morning, and one day I got an email that said a company called Ocean Gate has invited us to do a story.
Was there no hesitation at all?
No hesitation at all.
It's pretty trusting.
Huh. Well, I just figured the guy clearly wants press. He's not going to put a live correspondent on anything that's dangerous. We were there in the second summer of operation. They would make 5 expeditions a summer. 1 9-day trip is an expedition. They do that 5 times. Each expedition has 5 chances to go down to see the Titanic. All told, that is 25 opportunities per summer. And in total, after 2 summers, they'd only been down there 9 times. But I felt like Ocean Gate had a maniacal safety culture. They had this rule of 3. If 3 tiny things were wrong or out of place or not optimal, they don't dive. They cancel the dive.
They're bringing us back up.
They're bringing us back up?
Yep. Oh. Yep, they're bringing us back up.
Something happened?
Something happened.
They had literally the leading expert on Titanic diving, P.H. Nargeolet, probably the greatest expert alive. I asked him over and over, nothing about this worries you? And he said, no, of course not.
I say, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem.
That also gave me a lot of reassurance. What is your function on this expedition?
I'm helping as much I can because I know a little bit of Titanic.
You know a lot about the Titanic.
PH's involvement is always going to be a mystery to us.
Squib drop right is released. Copy that. Squib drop right.
He was told in no uncertain terms that he was lending his credentials to something that had a clear and obvious flaw to it.
Slow down, he's just in front of us.
His response was always the same. I'm an old man. I've had a fantastic career. If I can help add safety to their operation, then that's a win.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, here's the map, guys.
Yeah.
You guys see it?
Look at that, though, how it just kind of emerges out.
All hands, tightness on the bow of the Titanic at a depth of 3741 meters.
Okay, done. There we go.
How on earth did Stockton get as far as he did? I will never understand that.
We've been lucky. You know, as I know Elon came up with this, but, you know, luck is the #1 superpower. And anybody who's done things in the ocean appreciates luck.
It just became such a tight group of people who had such strong belief in what they thought they were doing that it became almost cult-like.
Tighten topside. Tighten topside. Welcome back to the service. Yeah, baby!
He fully believed in what he was doing and that it would work. Why else would he be the pilot on most of the dives? Why else would he invite a television crew to film it?
Your sub has just returned from the entire day at the Titanic.
Again.
Our David Pogue was invited recently to join the highly select and very small group of people.
Our story about OceanGate aired in November of 2022. I think viewers thought it was super cool, super interesting. Stockton was thrilled. He said, we're already getting calls.
Mr. Catterson, did you ever go on a dive on Titan?
No.
Would you have felt comfortable going on the Titan to depth?
No.
Stockton's and my relationship started to turn sour. As everything was built, he wanted me to be the pilot that runs the Titanic missions. And I told him I'm not getting in it. That certainly was the death of me.
If you can't convince your own people who believe in your mission that your vessel is safe, then there's something deeply wrong with your company. Right? Do you listen to those concerns? Do you take them on board? Do you make them part of the process of making this the safest vehicle that they all wanted? Or do you call them into conference room and say you're fired?
The unsung hero in this is Dave Lockridge. He was perhaps alone in the room that realized how bad things really were. I mean, he refused to compromise his professional standards.
We decided to counter-sue OceanGate. But rather than what OceanGate did is they decided to sue us in civil court, which remains behind closed doors. We decided to do it in federal court so that it would become public knowledge and the public have complete information.
We had to fight them with everything we've got. But it was costing us financially. I mean, for the first 7 months, we put savings into this. We
What do you want? A sister? Aren't you a cute one? Are you by any chance a model or something? No, nothing in particular. What a waste. I'm sorry, but you should definitely make use of the style you got. I mean, do you want me to introduce you to my office? Give you me your number. Sorry, I'm not sure about that kind of thing. I see. I don't care if you regret it. I'll have a salted caramel mocha, please. I should know this. Mocha. Oh, no. Yeah, it's chocolate sauce, too. Yeah, I got this. trying to remember, dude. It's actually fun. Like the horror game and the burger game? Yeah, kinda. What the fuck, dude? It's winter outside. Is this libido? What the fuck? Damn, nice. It's Mamataro. Hey, hey, it's so hot today. I'll have a caramel chilappuccino. Excuse me, sir. Could you please put on some clothes and not make a scene? Come on, I won't be here for long. No, it would not. So legally, that's out of the question. Wouldn't it be assassin if the customer catch a cold? What? What? Are you worried about me? Thanks, but it's hot today. It's cold outside. It's 1 degree Celsius. What? It's in a single digit? I'm surprised you couldn't notice. Any translators? I see. I didn't realize how different people's senses are. I might just go home. Okay, what does B say? I'm just gonna say B, dude.